If you start a war with Starfleet and try to destroy the Federation, I'll kill a senator to bring the Romulan Star Empire into the war and massacre everyone you know and everything you hold dear. Benjamin Sisko, 2374. Words from a brave man. But who was Ben Sisko? Someone who ultimately became the emissary of the prophets, but let's take a look at his history. Let's do a character analysis of Captain Benjamin Sisko.
I'm Benjamin Sisko.
I suppose you want the office.
Well, I thought I'd say hello first, and then take the office. But we could do it in any order you'd like.
When trying to define who, or even what, Sisko is or was, many try to compare him to other well-known captains. Often he is described as a mix between Captain Jean-Luc Picard and Captain James Tiberius Kirk. But what a lot forget is that the man we met in the Deep Space Nine series is a changed man, a damaged individual. Remember, Sisko rose during the height of Starfleet pacifism. It is highly likely that he either agreed wholesale or at least in part with Picard. So when he grew up, he probably thought that he was going to be an explorer, even as a commander before Wolf 359. So when you think of Sisko during this time, again, he would consider himself an explorer and not a soldier.
You had a wife before, Mama?
It's a little bit more complicated than that, Ben. You see, Sarah was your mother.
Sisko was born in the year 2332 in New Orleans, or New Orleans in the Latin. This, of course, being in North America. I say North America because the United States was apparently absorbed into what will be known as the United Earth. Even before he was born, Sisko's future was already being plotted by interdimensional space beings. Aliens, which would ultimately become known as the Prophets, decided that they would infest a woman by the name of Sarah. Then, after being able to force what she does, or at least sharing her existence, they would ensure that she met up with Joseph Sisko. From what we know, she had already had a passing interest in the man, but this just made it a lock. The Prophets would then ensure, i.e. not give the woman a choice, in mating with Joseph Sisko and carrying the baby to term. This would ensure the birth of Benjamin Sisko. Sexual assault? Thy name is Wormhole Aliens. Sisko's childhood would be pretty uneventful, well, after we get past the forced sexual copulation via gods. Ben grew up with his brothers and sisters, Father Joseph, as I've stated, and his stepmother. He was taught to cook with real food as his father had a mild disdain for what came out of the replicator. Sisko would enter into Starfleet Academy in 2350. Or was it 2348? Well, regardless, he would enter into Starfleet Academy as a, wait for it, Starfleet engineer. He would serve in various different posts, including Starbase 137, Paleo Station, the USS Okinawa, this position during the Zenkethi Wars, and ultimately the Saratoga. As stated, the Federation would enjoy unprecedented peace. Well, relatively. And Sisko would benefit from that, having a family, having a wife and kid that would go with him on starbases and starships. Unfortunately, all that was going to change about 11 years later.
You will disarm your weapons and escort us to Sector 001. If you attempt to intervene, we will destroy you.
Red alert! Load all torpedo bays, ready phasers.
Move us to position Alpha, Ensign.
In 2366, at least 40 ships would go up against one Borg cube. The Borg, of course, being under the command of Locutus of Borg, former Starfleet captain who was known as Jean-Luc Picard. Sisko was the first officer of the aforementioned USS Saratoga during this battle. His family, including his wife Jennifer and son Jake Sisko, were also present on the ship at the time. The battle was a decisive victory for the Borg cube, with most all ships being destroyed or assimilated. During the battle, the Saratoga would be disabled, Sisko quickly moving to locate his family, as it was obvious the vessel was lost. Luckily, Sisko would find his son unharmed and be able to get him to safety, but unfortunately, Jennifer, his wife, would die at the Battle of Wolf 359. Thank God they had civilians on that ship. Losing his wife at the hands of the Borg changed Sisko. he would move from serving on ships to designing them, specifically designing vessels that had what SF Debris calls one singular purpose: to find and kill the Borg. This is where things become somewhat sketchy in his history. We can't be sure if Sisko secretly kept his dissatisfaction with Starfleet and the loss of his wife to himself, or if it began to manifest in his work. This is only noted because it's interesting to determine whether Sisko was assigned to Deep Space Nine as a way of getting a troublesome officer out of sight and out of mind, or if he was sent to Deep Space Nine because a different kind of Starfleet officer, one that had been changed like he was, had been needed. We know that Admiral Layton had promoted and given him this posting, so it's quite possible that the Admiral saw the commander falling away and wanted to inspire the man. And here we are, 2369. Sisko is assigned to Bajor, specifically Deep Space Nine, though people call it Terok Nor before that, and no one cares. A backwater planet with backwater people that everyone forgot. On the bright side, Sisko didn't care either.
Commander, yes, please, come in. Welcome to Bajor.
It's been a long time, Captain.
We met before.
Yes, sir. We met in battle. I was on the Saratoga at Wolf 359.
Unfortunately for Sisko, his assignment briefing would be conducted by none other than Jean-Luc Picard, the man arguably responsible for the death of Sisko's wife. Sisko tells the former enemy and hero of the Federation of his intent to resign, making an uncomfortable standoff between the two. While they attempt to find a suitable replacement, Sisko would commit to doing his job to prepare the Bajorans for entrance into the Federation. Unfortunately for Sisko, Bajor was in a tough spot. All of the factions that had fought the Cardassians, who had binded together, were now about to rip each other apart. Sisko did the only thing he knew how. He utilized a trick from the past. He was going to bring everybody together using religion.
Ironic. One who does not wish to be among us is to be the emissary.
All of Bajor was ready to rip itself apart. Bajorans preparing just to kill each other. Fortunately, there was one religious leader they would all listen to, one who was chosen by the gods they all believed in. Sisko reached out to Kai Opaka in an attempt to enlist her assistance in bringing Bajor together. She advised him that the only way she was going to help is if he found the wormhole and became the emissary. Space Jesus. That's who he was. Space Jesus. Sisko indeed does find the gods of Bajor, the prophets in the Denorius Belt, and ultimately becomes the emissary as was prophesied. Additionally, his interaction with the aliens of the wormhole, also known as the prophets, would force him to face the losses that he took at Wolf 359. This would change him again to become someone better, to somewhat push past that pain. While we can't be sure, this may have also impacted how he viewed Picard, finally forgiving the man, though, again, it's unknown ultimately. The first few years on the station would be tumultuous, though tame compared to what would occur to Sisko in the last few years of his command. Negotiating an extradition treaty for Dax, trying to understand the Bajoran religion, DS9 becoming a major trading hub, Sisko had all kinds of problems. And of course, the Cardassians were a constant thorn in his side, but that wouldn't be the major thing to happen to DS9 in the beginning. No, it was Bajoran nationalists.
Clear.
In the early years, a terrorist cell known as the Circle would gain major traction within the government of Bajor, and the people would rally behind them. Of course, they didn't really call themselves that. You sound more like a force for good if you call yourself the Alliance for Global Unity. Though the Circle does sound better than AGU, I suppose. The Circle would be so prominent that even Bajoran military forces are observed moving into key positions and the station taken, preparing for their rise. The Circle even corrupts many within the religious order to get what they want. However, thanks to a hero by the name of Leonalis and the actions of the crew, Sisko defeats the Circle and shows their connection to the Cardassians. Due to this, the provisional government would prevail and be restored to power. And then, there's the Maquis.
Commander!
Sorry, Benjamin.
No!
Okay, let's go. Knowing Ben's temper when he wakes up, we won't want to be here. Come on. Let's move out. Come on, here we go.
The Maquis are perhaps some of the more challenging and interesting times for Benjamin Sisko. They would be a constant thorn in his side until right before the beginning of the Dominion War. But it wasn't really the Maquis. When you take a look at it, he didn't care about the organization that much. What he did care about was being betrayed. Starfleet officers like Kel Hudson, who proclaimed to be a part of the Federation, who took an oath, and decided to turn away from Paradise. No, for Sisko, that couldn't stand. It would be Gul Dukat that brought the growing Maquis threat to Sisko's attention. Even then, Sisko would want to help, but would not become passionate or committed until Cal Hudson. Sisko would make it his personal goal to hunt down his old friend as well as bring the Maquis to justice. However, as close as he was to Cal, that wouldn't be his worst betrayal. But all of that would pale in comparison for what was to come, whether it's betrayal, the fall of the Maquis, or the Dominion War. Stay tuned as we take a look at all of it.